Hi, Julie. This is the second time we saw each other recently. The last time being a couple of weeks ago at our CIO roundtable, where we had 22 senior technology executives participating, discussing this very timely topic about leading growth and innovation in the disruptive era. And as a board advisor of the IT Media Group, you were in the room observing the whole discussion. When I think about all the topics that we talked about, chief among them is really this importance of data as a foundation to AI implementation. And another key discussion point is, the group actually reflected on over 100 challenges, tactics, and strategies around AI implementations and AI use cases, and also around cloud modernization as well. So I'm always impressed with how astute your observations are and really like to use this opportunity to hear about your key takeaways.
Thanks, Nasheen. Being an observer for the roundtable was an interesting and fun way to go about it because I wasn't at the table. Of course, I wanted to interject many different points in time, but it allowed me to think and listen differently to what I was hearing coming out from everybody. And one of the things that really struck me listening to the group was no matter what technology is coming along, because we're always evolving in that space, understanding your why is a big thing. Understanding what the business is trying to achieve and where it wants to go was an overarching theme that came out in a bunch of different ways through the use cases and just talking about things from a technology perspective, but then realizing and even debating if business should be focused on the business or the tech, and how is that melding together. So I thought that was really interesting because in the past, technology was just a tool, but now people are saying, I think it's actually embedded into the business and what customers are expecting. So that was definitely one key point.
I made this comment during the roundtable that I've been hosting these type of discussions for the last 14 years. And the relationship between business and IT has been an evergreen topic. And we've always discussed the need of CIOs having a seat at the business table. But AI has really accelerated this mindset shift that, in fact, technology is business.
Yeah, it's true. And like when you think about who's at the table, that's also an interesting discussion point that came out a bunch of different ways from should the CIO or technology be at the table to who else should be at the table? Who owns the data? Who's your customer? Is that customer internal or external? Or maybe it's some kind of combination. And another common conversation related to who's at the table is what is everybody's role these days? So not just the CIO, but when you think about the CFOs and other C-suite roles, they're they're all evolving to be strategic. And the key element that goes between them, and that I've also seen in my advisory work, is that those roles have to understand each other, understand the business from a whole, and be able to collaborate and interact towards solving a business problem and having experience and expertise that runs across the business, not just in the silo where your job position sits.
Absolutely. And I think AI is really the catalyst for that change because where there isn't a business case, then there's really very little need for the technology itself. And now we really see that push from the business side of people getting so excited. There's this higher degree of enthusiasm about AI. Let's do something with AI. And everybody on the business side is pushing technology to look into these business cases, which is a huge positive change. But on the other hand, it really propels this synergy between business and technology working together as one unit.
That is certainly true. And along with that is just going back to who else needs to be at the table. Some of the ways to figure out where the technology is going to sit is really being close to the customer and understanding what result sets they're looking for, or what they're trying to do in their business. And a really good way to look at it is to think about one of the examples with healthcare. When you're in tech or you're in manufacturing, you might think of things a certain way in terms of product versus customer. But when you think about healthcare, we can naturally pull a comparison to our own lives and what we want doctors to know and understand, for example, and they might not be anywhere interested in working with or dealing with data as we might think about it as technology leaders, but it translates into what a diagnosis might look like for a human, right? So that's a really great way to look at it, to think about what perspectives make sense with AI, with data, and what results we really want to achieve with some of the very cool things that are coming along.
What's also interesting is, I think during the roundtable, this notion of AI readiness versus maturity became a focal point of the discussion. When I looked around the table, there were 11 or 12 industries represented at the table. And clearly, the readiness is very varied, and the AI maturity is also very much across the spectrum. But for everyone to share their experiences and look at each other's challenges and successes and being able to benchmark with their peers, that was a huge value add for the room.
I agree. More than once, I heard somebody say, I didn't realize that that was going on in another industry, or I don't really get out of my own swim lane. And I'm so glad I was here to be able to hear what's happening in an industry I wouldn't normally be privy to. And so I think that's really reassuring, and it's a good message to tell others to take that kind of time to see and poke out and see what's going on in other industries, because sometimes they're thinking about things slightly different that might change your own strategy for how you want to approach something. Sometimes they might be moving faster or slower. So kind of how you mentioned, people who think they're high on the maturity level might be level set, right? And think, oh, I thought because we had our data figured out, that's maturity, but we haven't got the governance figured out, or we haven't really thought about the proper use cases, or we're really just looking at efficiencies, but what about really growing and being more innovative? This other industry is way ahead of us. So I think it's an eye opener. It can help people level set, but also create new connections to individuals that can help you potentially change how you want to move forward.
So certainly it was a jam-packed 2 hour discussion across the table. And we also have a number of excellent content assets teed up in the pipeline, including an article that you're working on. And do you want to just talk about it at a very high level?
Well, one of the themes that I noticed when I was listening during the roundtable was a theme of transparency. When I think about companies and some of the ones I've worked with and advised, they want to keep things very close to the chest. It's the secret sauce. But when it comes to AI, we as a whole are struggling to understand, how can we trust it? Is the data accurate? Who needs to be at the table to properly, diagnose what's coming out of some of these tools? And so transparency as a theme isn't just in the AI black box concept that people are thinking about, but also in the leadership at the table, or with the teams or with the boards, where that transparency needs to be in all of those areas in order to be able to absorb what's coming with AI and to be able to make proper business decisions as well.
I'm certainly so looking forward to your article, and keep your eyes peeled for our Roundtable Highlights video one-on-one interviews and Julie's article on AI transparency. Thank you for watching.